So today we're going to talk about the art of war and how you can use this book to improve your League of Legends play. Now, this was a book written in the 2nd century BC by Chinese general and philosopher Sun Tzu, and it's a timeless work because even though it is catered towards war, it is written in a way that it can fit a lot of other endeavors. A lot of the philosophies in this book can be applied to many other things, and one of those is League of Legends, which is why I'm making this video. And it's a very easy to read book. It's about 60 pages long and it's written in bullet point format. So it's super easy to understand, very straightforward, and I'd highly recommend it. For the purpose of this video, I'm not going to cover everything in this book, and in fact, I will only talk about the first chapter titled Laying Plans. And I'm going to read excerpts from this chapter and try to translate it into League of Legends terms and how you can use that to improve your game. Some of it is a little bit too catered towards war, so I will be skipping through quite a few points, and we'll just be reading the ones that I feel are the most vital ones. So let's get started. And the first one's going to be that the art of war is governed by five constant factors to be taken into account in one's deliberations when seeking to determine the conditions in the field. Pretty straightforward once you know the five factors. The five factors are 1. The moral law, 2. Heaven, the third is earth, the fourth is the commander, and the fifth one is method and discipline. Now, what do all these mean? Well, the moral law causes the people to be in complete accord with the ruler, so that they will follow him regardless of their lives, undismayed by any danger. This is the whole coveted shock collar idea that gets thrown around all the time, that you want to have one unanimous voice that everybody follows, and it just has to be, it doesn't have to be one person really saying that, but it just has to be that the team as a unit, as a whole, really focuses and works together towards the common goal. That the idea is that one bad call that is followed by all five without any hesitation is better than a good call that is split. So to give you an example, you just killed 3 out of 5 of the enemy team. You just killed 3. That's almost an ace. And now you are in the mid lane and you have the option, do we go Baron or do we play it safe and recall? Now, if the right call in hindsight would have been to do Baron, but only 3 people choose to do Baron while 2 others go to push a tower, then you're probably going to lose a lot of people and not be able to get that Baron either. So that's a good call that was split that can be punished easily and you can throw. While if a bad call would be, okay, just recall, you get nothing, you don't get a tower or the Baron. Well, at least you played it safe and everybody followed, so now you can go at it again and not make any mistakes as a team, and that can be more drastic than what you just did. So the idea, one good call that is split is worse than a bad call that is followed. Now the next one is going to be heaven, and heaven signifies night and day, cold and heat, times and seasons. This is very particular to war, but I think that it applies very well to League of Legends, and I've been giving it some thought as to what this one could mean, and it's almost obvious now that I see it that this one means the factors that you always have to consider. If you're fighting a war, you always have to consider night and day, cold and heat, times and seasons, but you can never control this. You have zero control as to night and day, like you can't change the seasons. None of that is in your control. So the best example for this is your teammates and the enemy. Like you have no control as to what your teammates are gonna do. Like, you have no idea what they're doing. This is more applicable to solo queue, by the way. The whole like you have no idea what they're doing. In a team environment, it's more so the opposing team. So you have to take these things into consideration and play accordingly. So this is just really being able to understand your opponents and understand your teammates and knowing how to act accordingly because you as an individual, these things are out of your control. You can only play accordingly. The next one is going to be Earth, and Earth comprises distances, great and small, danger and security, open ground and narrow passes, the chances of life and death. Now that's a pretty self-explanatory one, and I don't think this one needs that much detail. It's mostly just the actual terrain. And you can attribute this one more so to like item builds and more so like the champion, the physical things that you have a little bit more control over. Obviously, like your builds are gonna be the same almost every game, depending on the champions. Like AD carries builds are very similar, AP mids are very similar, jungle builds are similar. All these things don't really have that much variation. So you do control these, same as being able to control where you fight. So these are things that are similar to the previous one, but more within your grasp or of control. And now the next one will be the commander. And the commander stands for the virtues of wisdom, sincerely, benevolence, courage, and strictness. And I think this one is more attributed towards the individual mentality of the players and how these players behave within the team environment and towards themselves, how you play, how you can actually take the game as in like if you're losing, how you act, if you're winning, how you react, just all towards the behavior of the players. And this is very important. If you have a player that is someone that's always going to try to be making the highlight reel, well, you can take that into your consideration. Or you have somebody whose play style is very passive, but he's just going to farm and do and play it safe is very different. And these are things that you have to take into consideration. Planning is key because all the large majority of these things happen to be planning. Like you have to do a lot of thinking before the game to consider what your game plan is going to be and how you're going to play accordingly. And there's another one about thinking on the fly that I really enjoy that's coming up later, but that doesn't mean that you just try to plan it all out and forget about acting on the spot. And the last one is going to be by method and discipline are to be understood the marshalling of the army in its proper subdivisions, the graduations of rank among the officers, the maintenance of roads by which supplies may reach the army, and the control of military expenditure. So, wow, that's a lot of army stuff. But it mostly talks about resources and people understanding their role. So that's what I take from it, and I think, okay, this one makes more sense along the lines of you need to understand what your role is within the team. If you're the AD carry, are you hitting tanks? Are you diving? If you're a Maokai, are you peeling? Are you engaging? What are you doing? How are you playing the map? What's your position and what's your role within the team composition? So being able to understand that is super important. And the supplies, how they reach the army, military expenditure, that is how you allocate your resources. In the League of Legends map, there is not enough gold for everybody to have all the farm and all the items that they need at all times. It's just not going to happen. So you need to know where you're going to put your gold in and your experience. Where is the jungler going to gank? Where are roams going to be headed to? Where are you warding? Which side are you trying to protect? What's your strong side? What's your weak side? These are things that should be taken into consideration, even if you're not the jungler. You are a part of the team, and you need to understand that you have an impact on every lane. Even if you don't think so, you can impact every lane, be it directly or indirectly. So these are things that are really important that you should think about before each game. And of course, it goes into a little bit more of a philosophical example. These five heads should be familiar to every general. He who knows them will be victorious. He who knows them not will fail. So, if you don't consider those five things before a game, then you're probably not doing a good job of thinking about the game and planning, to be completely honest with you. So, therefore, in your deliberations, when seeking to determine the military conditions, let them be made on the basis of a comparison in this wise. Now, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but just to keep things clear, deliberations means thinking your thoughts, your deep thoughts, your you're thinking deeply about these things. So, basis of a comparison. The basis of the comparison is asked in a series of questions. Number one, which of the two sovereigns is imbued with the moral law? So by the two sovereigns, he's referring to which of the two teams has the moral law. Now remember the moral law we talked about being having that unanimous voice. So which team has somebody to follow? Which team is going to be acting upon a call unanimously while the other one will be split? The second one is which of the two generals has the most ability? Who's a better captain? Just flat out. If you have a team, you're gonna need a captain. You need somebody to be making decisions. And if you have multiples, are two who like are the two captains better than the one? Or if each team has two captains, who is a better leader? Easy and simple question. With whom lie the advantages derived from heaven and earth? So we talked about the advantages of heaven and earth, the things that you can control and you cannot control, items, champions, the timings in the game, dragons, and I suppose dragons kind of plays into it, but not so much. But who has better teammates almost? Like just think about it in a more individualistic point of view and with whom lie those advantages. Then the fourth question is, on which side is discipline most rigorously enforced? Now, this is something that in war is obviously super important, but in a team 5v5 environment, this is really important. Which team is thinking, if we lose right here, we're like, my job is on the line. Like, this is something that is very true in the Asian scene of League of Legends, but not so much in the West, that if you mess up, there's somebody right there that will replace you as soon as you start slipping up. So that puts discipline on the player. That you want to be, I got to improve. I'm here to get better. I'm here to do this, unlike in other regions. So that's a very important one that can often be overlooked. And which army is stronger is the fifth question. Simple as that. Power spikes, champions, how you play the team fight. Which team is stronger at the specific time? Nice and easy. The sixth one is, on which side are officers and men more highly trained? Who's got more experience? Who knows the game better? Who knows how to play? Or who's been playing for longer? Who's actually the better player? Again, these are very easy to understand, but just are things that should be considered when you play League of Legends that you shouldn't overlook. And once you make it a habit to understand these questions and really think about it subconsciously, that you already know, you don't have to think to yourself this thing or which stronger, who's more highly trained, things like that. Once you get past the point where you have to actively think on it, you'll be in a much better spot. And then the seventh question is, in which army is there the greater constancy both in reward as punishment? Now that kind of plays into the whole discipline that I mentioned when you apply it into league terms, that punishment and reward. In Asia there's a lot of reward, while there is pretty severe punishment and not so much in the West. And that's really the easiest comparison you can have. And you can make a much more smaller comparison if you see it in a way of just a team that has more expertise and more established as opposed to a team that's just starting up. If a team that's just starting up usually doesn't have as much punishment and reward, the resources aren't there to replace players, the rewards aren't there to really reward the players for acting very well. So these are things that do play a part into how a game will pan out. So again, more on these philosophical terms. He says, by the means of these seven considerations, I can forecast victory or defeat. So, I mean, before each game, if you ask yourself these seven questions, or even during the game, and you get a good answer to all seven, it's a pretty good way of comparing two teams, and it's a pretty reliable way of forecasting victory, to be honest. So, again, the general that hearkens to my counsel and acts upon it will conquer. Let such a one be retained in command. The general that hearkens not to my counsel nor acts upon it will suffer defeat. Let such a one be dismissed. Now, of course, that doesn't really apply to League of Legends, and I just want to give you guys a kind of a taste as to what the book sounds like and if you can enjoy it. This is one that I really like. The bullet point number 16. While heading the profit of my counsel, avail yourself also of any helpful circumstances over and beyond the ordinary rules. Now, avail means, make use of it. Seek other opportunities that are more than he's just talking about. So be open-minded. If somebody tells you this is how you win the game, think about what else is there? What else can I gather around me? What other information? Is there more knowledge that I can use to my advantage to win a game? And this is something that a lot of people may not do. You just see, oh, here's a MOBA Fire, fuck, MOBA Fire is the first website that came up to my mind because I was on that site for a previous video. But here's a website that's giving me a guide as to how to play this champion. Well, Is there more? What can you do to improve on it? I mean, you play the game as well. You surely must know something as well about the champion, about the team play that you want to do. There's always something more that you can learn and apply it to your own gameplay. So seek as much information as possible always. Always look to improve, always look to have the advantage. That doesn't mean cheat. I want to make that clear. That doesn't mean go get a shitload of macro keys. Don't get some programs. That doesn't mean cheat. I want to make that clear. This does not mean seek in a cheating edge. Like if it's war, sure, that means doing as much like unthinkable shit as possible. But this league, don't cheat. And the next point that I also really enjoy is according as circumstances are favorable, one should modify one's plans. Now, earlier I mentioned that we talk about thinking on the fly, and he also talks about doing all these calculations beforehand. You want to think about all the seven heads and the five, um, five heads that you need to think about for the game so you can forecast victory and whatnot. But that doesn't mean that you just think about these things and stick to them and tunnel vision on these. You need to be able to adapt on the fly. And as circumstances change, oh, the enemy did this, but it wasn't something we planned, capitalize on it. Punish them. Do this, do a better play that you didn't plan for, or change your item build. Oh, they messed up here, or you messed up here. You need to be able to react accordingly, and always do that. Be very flexible, but at the same time very strict. And here's where it gets into the bit of a trickier part, that I think that starting from point 18, which again on the first chapter, laying plans, it gets it gets really good. This is where the book got really enjoyable for me, which is begins by all warfare is based on deception. Hence, when able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must seem inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When we are far away, we must make him believe we are near. So this is something that I don't think many teams do, and it's kind of difficult to do. But just the first example off the top of my head is this. Let's say you're sieging mid lane turret. You have a Quirky on your team and you got a great power spike. You group 5 middle, maybe 4, and the enemy has almost no answer to you. You just cleared a wave, you just harassed down the enemy, you got a little bit of damage on the tower, and now you're waiting for the next wave. What I see a lot of people do is they stand within tower range waiting for the next creep wave, because they're just saying, yeah, we're just gonna siege your tower, and you're not gonna be able to do anything about it. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna siege your tower. Now, it makes it very obvious for the team to know what's going on. They're like, oh, well, he's just staying there sieging the tower. And sure, a lot of times it works because you're utilizing the power spike, but it would be better to just get out of the line of sight, and then when the wave comes, they don't know if you're gonna do that. They could be thinking, "Oh, sure, okay, they left, they left. Don't worry, don't come mid, guys. Don't come mid. They're not gonna siege." And then you pop up again from the fog over, like, "Shit, okay, you need to come back, guys, come back." Always keep them on their toes. You gotta always maintain the illusion that you're doing something else. Like you're doing like you take full control of an area, and then it's like, oh, okay, surely they're prepping for the Baron. They're prepping for the 20-minute Baron, right? Oh, they have a Nunu. They're gonna prep for the 20-minute Baron. They're doing it. They're gonna cheese it, and then you just dropped a couple of words like, oh, surprise! That's not what you're actually doing. We were just making you think that you're doing Baron. Now we're gonna take the other dragon that spawns at the same time. Things like that. Keep them on their toes. Keep them guessing. You don't lose anything by making the enemy confused. You always gain something. That's a really important one, and you can do that individually as well, as a like anything from recalling at odd times in the laning phase, having weird teleports or odd item paths as well. For instance, like you could be buying a fiendish codex and then the enemy thinks, oh, okay, he's going for the Grail and my magic resist items. Like, surprise, that's not true. He's not going for Grail. You're going for a Morellonomicon, and now you're swapping out with your top laner as a mid laner, and now you're going to be able to bully out the top lane Mundo because you get a Morellonomicon, but he thought the mid laner thought you were going Grail. Now you just counter the top laner when you're laning against him. Things like that. Always keep the enemy guessing. And number 20, hold out baits to entice the enemy. Feign disorder and crush him. Again, keep him confused. This is a psychological game. It's a mental game. There's no physical aspect to League. You're not gonna be, oh, I'm stronger than him. I have better fingers than the other guy. And like, sure, that can take you places, but you ultimately will win by the psychological game that you play on the enemy. And baiting the enemy. This is a great one. You know, you put a bunch of wards around an area, they think that you're going to be there, and maybe you are, maybe you aren't because you denied vision. Vision denial is super important in order to maintain the enemy confused. So, baiting is a good way of countering champions that have all-in potentials. And with the team fighting meta that currently stands, this is fantastic. So things like Leona, a Sejuani, and Annie really have to commit. They're all in. They have no retreat button. They go in and that's it. They stay in. So you can bait these champions really easily by it's like, oh look, the AD carry is not doing anything. He's not dodging any of Leona's Zenith Blade. Okay, come bottom, guys. This guy is easy to kill. I can land the Zenith Blade. Then when you actually do that, it's like, oh shit, they actually expected me to go in on at this time, and they countered it with 5 people. Okay, brutal. We got crushed. Damn. He was playing so poorly the entire game. I didn't think that he'd actually be that there would actually be somebody down here now. Things like that are gonna win you a lot of games. But they need a little bit more of coordination. But regardless, you can use this in your solo queue games. Remember that. You can communicate to your teammates in solo queue. And if you can't, well, fuck them. Then do your own thing. Do these to your own terms. If he is secure at all points, be prepared for him. If he's in superior strength, evade him. That's a simple one. If the enemy team is strong everywhere, well, be ready. You brace yourself. If you're losing all the lanes, you gotta think, okay, shit, one of us is gonna get ganked. Gotta be prepared. Get your defensive wards out. Be ready. Be like the ganks are coming. The tower dives may be happening. Let's prepare for it. Set it up. It's not the time to be aggressive. If he's in superior strength, then also evade him. That just means, okay, they're grouping as 5. They're stronger than us as 5. We need to find a way to split them up. Okay, that means slow build a wave bottom so that they have to deal with a creep wave, forcing them to split up. Force an objective at a completely random time. You'll be thinking, why are they doing this? Okay, let's go do something else and separate ourselves or move somewhere that is not as effective for us. So just keep them, play to your strengths, and have them avoid playing to their strength. You want to have them in their weaknesses at all times. That's super important because it makes your team or your own play that much easier. Like, do you want to fight Corki at the Trinity Force power spike at 13 minutes? Probably not. That guy is really strong at that time. Do you want to fight the Corki? Like, do you want to have Corki stay in lane for that 13 minutes up until the 20-minute mark and lose that power spike? Yeah, of course you do. So you can focus a little bit more attention towards that bottom side, have Corki stay down there, and then he loses that timing window. You want to think about things like that so that you're always on your best strength at the time. Here's one that really applies to solo queue and very little to competitive play. If your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him. Pretend to be weak, that he may grow arrogant. Now, this is similar to the whole baiting thing. It's like, I remember we had a game a couple of days ago that we were playing against a Sivir that just did not spell shield anything. Like, you'd throw everything at this guy, and he would get hit by like, he wouldn't spell shield a single thing. And then when we go to get a gank on him, he starts spell shielding everything, and it all backfires horribly. It's like, wow, okay, we just got baited. He surely pretended to be weak. I mean, he probably wasn't doing that on purpose, but the result was the same. Like, you don't have to go to that extreme of not using an ability, but you can do similar things by, oh, okay, he's taking kind of unfavorable trades, but just enough that creates a little bit of doubt in your opponent's play that he may think, okay, I can probably take good trades. Maybe can I push a little further? Can I push a little further? Take a little bit of a better trade, and then eventually, bam, somebody's there. You capitalize on him. The enemy thought that you were weak, that you were not very good. You just baited him and you got yourself a nice kill, perhaps an objective afterwards, and of course the whole tilting. That tilts someone, right? Like if you're somebody that is easy to tilt, and you know this, especially in solo queue, you know when someone's easy to tilt as soon as they start talking in all chat. The people that rage in all chat at their team are the ones that tilt. So find that guy, just camp the shit out of him. Like 80% chance you get somebody AFK. And if you say, oh, well, I can't camp the guy, I'm laning against him, we'll call somebody else. Tell, beg your team, camp him. He's gonna tilt. If you tell somebody on your team, if you camp this guy, he's gonna rage quit. I guarantee. I bet you. Come on, man. He's gonna AFK. Don't you want a 4v5 win? And it's shitty, but I know how everybody wants its LP, so it'll get you victories, man. Just get these guys that are easily to irritate, feel demoralized, and they'll drag their own team down. And it's not that applicable to competitive play because that just doesn't fly. If you're somebody that tilts, that's gonna be very quick to be, cut off. Like you're somebody that tilts in the competitive scenario, the coach is gonna be on your ass. The team's not gonna let that happen. So this is more for solo QN. To be honest, when I started playing, I'd do this all the time. Find someone that tilts, tilt them. Easy win. There is three more points, actually four, that I want to talk about that are pretty damn good. And this is all about maintaining your aggression. If he is taking his ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. Now, if the enemy just wants to farm, they have a scaling team composition, and maybe you have a scaling team composition, that doesn't mean that you can't take the pedal to the metal, and you gotta keep them on their heels. You want to make sure that they're thinking, okay, we need to really buy time to get farm. We are on our we are backs against the wall. Like they are non-stop aggression, and we can't do anything about it because we have a late game scaling comp. You need to make the enemy be thankful that they can get that their waves are hitting their towers. You need to make them think, oh man, I don't even know if I can go in my jungle right now. Things like that. That's how you need to make the enemies feel. And even if the enemy isn't taking a rest, you should be seeking that kind of playstyle a lot of times, if possible. Obviously, maybe you can have a late game scaling comp and you take a huge lead. Well, you can do the same thing again. Just make them feel really worried at all times and just always have to be aggressive and not the way that, oh, we got to do this right now. We got to overcommit. We got to really deep war their jungle right now. You just have to make them always never be passive. You need to make the enemy team try to always react to what you are doing so that you dictate the pace of the game. If you're never the one to gets to deep ward or gets to jungle or gets to invade the jungle, then you just split the map in even size and everybody can do what they want. But if every once in a while, you sneak in, drop a ward here and there, maybe steal a camp, enemies thinking, "Oh, I got to do something about this." There's somebody that's really pestering me. Like, man, if I'm not on my buff at the second it spawns, I'm gonna lose it. That's how they should think. They should be thinking, if I get one bad back timing, we're gonna lose that dragon. I need to do this right. You need to always make the enemy think like that, and they will slip up. It happens. They're gonna slip up if you maintain that constant pressure. And if his forces are united, separate him. Well, we talked about this earlier. It doesn't apply to all the time, really. Sometimes you have really is based more so on team composition, but that one is based a lot more on the strength of the champion or the compositions that you have drafted. If you're a stronger 5v5 comp and you want them to 5v5, by all means go 5v5. You're much stronger. But if you have a little bit of a split push presence, split them up. Make sure that you create the situation that is always beneficial for you and not for the enemy team. Attack him where he is unprepared, appear where you are not expected. And this just shows how important these things are. The whole keep the enemy confused because they are being repeated. Now, if the enemy isn't expecting you to, out of nowhere, group 4 middle and try to take a tower, it probably will work because they won't have anybody to defend. If the enemy isn't expecting a level 3 Twitch to leave bottom lane and gank middle, it'll probably work because who the hell does that? If you play a style in which the enemy is thinking, it's like, why would they do that? It worked, but why would they do that? I could have not possibly foreseen this. Like you invade against like a Lee Sin, you try to two buff him or three buff him. It's like, why would they do that? Things like that. And it can work because the enemy wouldn't be expecting it. They'd be resting on their laurels thinking, oh, well, that's just a play that doesn't get done. Nobody does that kind of stuff. That just makes no sense. I wouldn't do that. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do that because it can net you good results. These military devices leading to victory must not be divulged before. And again, more philosophical things, emphasizing how important these things are. And throughout the entire book, there are many more points that are just as useful as these. And the last one is now the general who wins the battle makes many calculations in his temple ere the battle is fought. The general who loses a battle makes but few calculations beforehand. Thus do many calculations lead to victory, and few calculations to defeat. How much more no calculation at all? It is by attention to this point that I can foresee who is likely to win or lose. That is important because he says who is likely to win or lose. That is not a certainty that you will win or that you will lose, depending on how many calculations you do during the game, out of the game. These are all things to help you. These aren't things that guarantee you anything. And similar to the previous point where you always have to be thinking on the fly and making advantage of more situations that get thrown at you to improve and not resting on just, oh, I already have all the information I need. There couldn't possibly be any more. I already know everything. You will get better. And before the game, this is things that mean, okay, the five comps are drafted. Where is the pressure going to go to? Which lane is weak? Which lane is strong? Where can they sneak a dragon early? Can they sneak a baron early? Are there goals to push towers? Do they want kills? Do they want objectives? What do they want to trade? Do they have summoner advantage everywhere? Can we win these 2v2s, 3v3s, 4v4s, 5v5s? Things like that. Think about every single interaction that both teams can have, and the game becomes so easy. Eventually, you get to a point where you can think, how would a team fight around 30 minutes pan out? Okay, well, I'd probably have these three items. The enemy probably will have all these four items. And if I tower dive here, like if I engage from the flank, we could probably win a 5v5. But if we go straight on, unless we get this ability used, like unless we get a blitz hook, we can probably win the straight on 5v5 without having to flank. Things like that. You can get to a point where you can map out so many possibilities within the two team compositions that while you're in game, you no longer have to think about it. You already thought about them already, and the result of that calculation is stuck in your head, and you play accordingly, and your games go super smoothly. And whether you win or lose, then now you know what happened. And it's also important. It mentions that if you can be tilted to tilt the opponent, that means applies to yourself. If you can be easily tilted, really make sure that you don't because like really work on that because that can really take a toll on your teammates and your own play and you can eventually result in a defeat. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I think it's a long-winded one and I'm debating if I should make any more about it because it is a topic that I truly enjoy, but it can be a little bit long. So let me know what you thought of the video, and if you have any ideas for future videos that you would like to see, by all means, YouTube comment, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.